The big question right now is whether or not Amazon Studios' billion-dollar experiment, it's an experiment, nothing more, with the Rings of Power is going to pay off. Because if it doesn't, there are reports out there that suggest that this will be the end of Amazon Studios as we know it, which I think would be a really sad thing considering there are a ton of great shows that have come out from Amazon Studios. The Expanse, as an example, we have the Jack Ryan show, we've got the Reacher show, we've got Bosch, we've got The Man in the High Castle, just to name a few. There have been some really good shows that have come out from Amazon Studios, and I would hate to see the entire thing go under. But this was the big gamble for them, a $1 billion gamble to see whether or not they could create a genre defining show the way HBO did with Game of Thrones. So the question is, was Rings of Power good enough to establish Amazon Studios as a genre defining giant? Today we're going to be going over the recap of Season 1. I'm Tim Anderson, aka Renfail, sometimes known as the Bearded Dwarven Princess for those of you who have been following along with my Rings of Power rant videos and also my reviews and discussions and so on and so forth. Before we dive in, this is the part of the video where I say if you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get more like this. Of course, if you want to support like all of these people, it's super simple. We'll go to the end of the video. We'll be talking about it, so hopefully you stick around there. In the meantime, I would urge everyone to stick around for what's coming after because I'm going to be continuing to talk about Rings of Power. I'm also still doing the Mondays in Middle Earth show, which happens every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Central Time. For those of you who want to read through the Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Silmarillion with me, check that out. Let's go into this a little bit. So, Season 1, was it worth it? Well, from a lore perspective, I'm not even going to get into the numbers yet. From a lore perspective, the universal reviews across the board around the world have been that this is one of the, if not the worst, adaptations in the history of adaptations for television and cinema. They did not appear to have any knowledge of the source material, and while there were some claims made back in, I think, February of 2022 when the Vanity Fair pieces first came out and the Super Bowl commercial, the showrunners was like, oh, we've got the support of the Tolkien Estate. Well, that doesn't really mean a lot in today's era because Christopher Tolkien, who was the gatekeeper of his father's legacy, died in the middle of all of the kerfuffle around the production of this show, leading them to consult with Simon Tolkien on the final versions of all the scripts. And as we know, Simon Tolkien does not give a shit about the lore of Middle Earth or the sanctity, so to speak, of his grandfather's legacy. He just wanted a payday and wanted to get cashed out as quickly as possible. Cash me out, bruh. So to me, when they touted that whole, we've got the Tolkien estate working with us and consulting with us, that didn't mean a lot to me because I think, like for most Tolkien fans, we realize that Simon Tolkien doesn't really appear to have any real concern over the legacy of Middle Earth. He just wanted to get rich quick. And he did get rich quick because Amazon paid the Tolkien Estate $250 million. Now, obviously, Christopher Tolkien was the one who sort of spearheaded that sale, or at least was a part of that when it went down. But he wasn't the one who oversaw the scripts. And so, from a lore perspective, universally, I have not seen any, ever. I've not seen a single positive review about the Rings of Power since it came out, not for a single one of the episodes regarding the lore of the show. Now, from a spectacle standpoint, I have seen a lot of praise for the visuals, for the score by Bear McCreary, who, by the way, his scoring has been amazing for all the things he works on. Whether it's all the way back to Battlestar Galactica or looking at God of War in the video game God of War, or doing things like Outlander or Black Sails. Walking Dead. Bear McCreary has done a lot of work over the years. This guy is a machine, and he's a brilliant composer. So I think it was a given that we were going to get good music from him. But good music doesn't save a bad show, nor does good visual effects, or no do visual effects. Better grammar there. So even though yes, visually the effects were very good and top notch, the music was great, that doesn't make a good show. And I've seen some reviewers who have said that from a non-lore perspective, it was a generally decent, like middle of the road generic fantasy show. But that's the thing, it came off as a generic fantasy show. So there is a report over at Business Insider, which I want to dig into a little bit, and I'm going to be linking this down below for those of you who want to read at your leisure and leave your comments below, etc., so on and so forth. But let's just talk about the business side of Rings of Power for a moment and whether or not this show was good enough. Did it get big enough numbers for Amazon Studios to continue as it was, or is this something that's going to fail miserably enough that Amazon Studios will be forced to shut down? Now, before anybody out there starts going, yeah, let's shut down Amazon Studios, Amazon Prime, Amazon everything, Amazon is evil, Bezos is evil, you need to stop right there. You're off your fucking rockers. Because Amazon Prime, from a consumer standpoint, is an amazing thing. Amazon as a company is an amazing company. And I'm not talking from the perspective of, oh, it's doing amazing things with human rights, everything else. From a consumer standpoint, being able to get next day delivery on things, and I'm not sponsored by them when I say this, I'm just saying from a consumer standpoint, Amazon has changed my life. I've been able to sell books through Amazon. I've been able to get things delivered to my house through Amazon, especially during the pandemic. Amazon Prime is just an amazing thing, and Amazon Studios has provided me with hundreds of hours of great entertainment. Look at The Boys as an example. Man in the High Castle, Reacher, Jack Ryan, all those shows I mentioned before. Like there are some genuinely good shows. I would hate to see Amazon Studios go under because of Rings of Power, but it is what it is at this point. Um, they've also made such hits as The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, as well as for like Jack Ryan and The Boys. They mentioned this here. Jeff Bezos wanted to raise the stakes by having his own Game of Thrones. And it says, to put it in Tolkien terms, the company has not yet closed its fingers Gollum-like around its precious, that being a major water cooler show that lures global viewers in mass. It says here, Rich Greenfield, a media analyst at Lightshed Management, said there's no doubt that Amazon has had success, but they haven't had a culturally defining show yet. There has been no massive breakout where everyone is talking about it. Obviously, everyone has been talking about the Rings of Power, but generally when I see people talking about it, it's usually around the fact that, oh, it's been the most expensive series ever made. And in the same breath, it's got some of the worst screenwriting we've ever seen. It's got some of the worst acting we've ever seen. Yeah, it's got great visual effects and it's got a great soundtrack, but I haven't seen anyone talking about what an amazing show this is. Other than a couple of paid media outlets like IGN, who, like, every single episode that comes out, they're like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. Like, oh my god, Rings of Power can't do anything wrong. It's like, it's this amazing show. I've not seen any media outlets other than IGN giving it praise, and maybe it's just because I have confirmation bias because of the media outlets that I read. That could be the case. I'd love to hear if there's positive stuff. Link it down below. In any case, um, this article is a little bit older now. The show just finished, but what's interesting here is one former senior exec said the reason why it's going to succeed is because the executives at Amazon needed to succeed. If it doesn't succeed, there's going to be a big question from Andy Jassy and the board. If we can't take this piece of IP and make it successful, why is Amazon Studios even here? It has to succeed. There is no option. Now it says here, how does Amazon measure success in streaming? Even within the studio, development and production of the series, which is blah, 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 is kept close to the vest, according to insiders. Word from critics, this is bullshit by the way, word from critics has been largely positive with a few unconvinced. I don't know that it's been largely positive. Several insiders predict that Amazon will find a way, regardless of actual viewership, to sound the trumpets of victory. And it says there's an art as well as a science to analytics, and that people are going to be taking the Amazon data and they're going to be looking to spin those numbers into the sunniest possible story. It says here, if it's not the highest performing thing Amazon has ever done, it's a failure, but the outside world may not ever know because they're going to take their data and they're going to put a spin on it to make it seem like they've got the biggest success on the planet. But do they? Um, Amazon, like other streamers, reveals very little audience data, which would allow them to say be tracked by the Nielsen measures, because that only goes through TV sets, but it doesn't mean it doesn't count mobile or desktop views. And to be honest with you, we watch everything these days through desktop. Well, I mean through the laptop, but on a big screen. So like we don't have I have a over here. I have a 50-inch smart TV, but we watch most of our stuff like from the laptop to there and etc. So it's like it's a weird thing, where the numbers aren't going to be tracked completely accurately. Um, it says here one former showrunner of a buzzy Amazon original said that the hard viewership or membership growth numbers were never provided by studio execs, just being a note passed along that said we're very, very pleased. So then you have to read between the lines. It's a request to make it the second season of a show, just like the first one, for example, signals it performed well with viewers. So it says here it's hard to know what constitutes a triumph at Amazon Studios, although recruiting new Prime members is always paramount. And I know there have been some complaints during this last episode, episode 8, the season finale, because an ad popped up in the middle of the episode prompting people to want to subscribe for more Amazon Prime stuff. And I know that pissed a lot of people off because it's like, hey, I'm paying you to be able to watch TV uninterrupted and I'm getting ads. What the hell? Um, so who knows? It says one internal measure for success is PVC or Prime Video consumption. Essentially, of all the streams on Amazon in a certain period, what percentage of a particular project represents. This number could be high for Rings, but we haven't heard those numbers yet. What's very interesting to me here, um, they talk about how Reuters reported in 2018 that the studio's internal metrics evaluated the cost of a series, viewership, and Prime membership growth to determine the key measurement, which was the cost per first stream. The lower that cost, the more efficient and valuable the show is. It says cost per first stream must remain a key metric, especially among top leadership, and the number is likely to be astronomical for Rings. Now, this is funny. It says filmed entertainment was a plaything for Amazon until it decided to become a Hollywood player because they didn't always have those ambitions. Um, they were always, I mean, if I remember correctly, if you go back early enough, I mean, Amazon's big thing was books. That was how they made their money originally, was through book sales. Um, and it has just branched out from there. So at the end of the day, whether or not this show is going to be an actual hit, we just finished the first season. It says here that Amazon won't suffer a heavy blow to the balance sheet if Rings of Power isn't a juggernaut. The company has a $1.4 trillion market cap and spent $8.5 billion to acquire MGM earlier this year. So this is the very important thing that I want to point out to people, because even if Rings of Power doesn't do as well as they want it to, it's not going to affect the company's bottom line. But what it will affect is Amazon Studios as a whole, and whether or not that continues to greenlight as many shows as they have in the past. And for me, that's my sticking point. Like, is this gamble going to pay off? And I know, like I said, a lot of people out there want this show to fail because they want Amazon Studios to go away. They want Amazon to burn because, oh, they did this horrible thing with Rings of Power, and oh, they did this horrible thing with Wheel of Time, and they're the worst company ever. No, this company puts out a lot of content, and they put out a lot of really good content. In between the good is sometimes bad. You take that when you are dealing with mass produced anything. There's always going to be good and bad. You produce 1,000 sandwiches, one or two of those sandwiches might have a bad leaf of lettuce in it. It's just fact. Um, so for me, at the end of the day, I'm watching like many other people, hoping that the show is at least successful enough to allow Amazon Studios to continue to produce good quality television, because I enjoy a lot of the other shows. They're already filming season 2. Whether or not they do any course corrections remains to be seen, and whether or not they continue spending the money that they spent on season 1 remains to be seen, because it's rumored that they spent $250 million of production on the first season. Visually, it looked amazing. However, that was not a $250 million production. Like, it was not, it was Marvel style, spectacle, but it was not something that I would consider to be a billion-dollar franchise. But that's just my take. I'm one guy on the internet screaming through the, screen of a YouTube channel. Love to hear your thoughts below. I'm going to be paying attention to the numbers like everybody else. I'll be continuing to talk about Rings of Power. We've got, I think, about 12 episodes already planned to come out over the next couple of weeks here in October, talking about various components from season one. Of course, I have the Mondays of Middle Earth show that happens every Monday morning at 11 a.m. Central, so hopefully we'll see some of you there. If you like what you saw here today, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Don't forget, if you want to support like all of these amazing people now that we're at the end, some of you are immediately going to be clicking away going, yeah, screw that, I don't care. Here's how you do that. It's really simple. On a premiere like this, you go down there and you do a super chat or a sticker. You also, after the fact, when it's been an uploaded video, you can do a super thanks, and you can also join as a member of the Adventurers Guild. We got 3 tiers of memberships, and of course, I do a lot of live streaming of video games if you want to tune into that. And we have a Patreon page for my own fantastical world that I've built with my wife and my brother, which is a 5th edition tabletop setting, a point-and-click adventure game, and a book series. And I am fully supported by my community members, and I am full-time on YouTube for the latter half of 2022, thanks to all of those amazing folks. So hopefully you'll choose to subscribe as well and keep me going, kind of like a Netflix of its own or an Amazon Studios. Until next time, everybody, stay safe, happy reading, and let's continue to talk about Rings of Power and see what comes down the pipeline next. Cheers.